Hello and welcome to our Lunch and Learn webinar, Protecting Your Workforce Through Post-Employment Screening. Over the next 30 minutes or so, we're going to discuss an area of workforce risk management that organizations are paying increasing attention to, what happens after the hiring decision is made. Before we begin, we'd like to quickly cover our standard legal disclaimer. The information we're sharing today is intended for educational purposes and is based on industry knowledge and best practices, so nothing discussed today should be interpreted as legal advice. And before we jump into the content, I'd like to take a moment to introduce our team. I'm Stephanie, Director of Compliance and Project Management here at RSI, and joining me today is Brad, our President and COO, Alicia, our Executive Director of Compliance and Operations, and Heather, one of our amazing client relations specialists. And then here's a quick look at what we'll cover today. We'll start by discussing why post-employment screening has become such an important component of an overall risk management strategy. And we'll talk about the reality that a background check is only a snapshot in time and explore some of the risks that can develop after an employee is hired. From there, we'll review several post-employment screening solutions, including criminal, traffic, and healthcare monitoring, plus automated rescreening options. We'll also discuss some best practices for these programs and maintaining compliance along the way. Throughout the presentation, please submit your questions in the Q&A chat and we will address them in real time. At the end, we'll have a last call for any remaining questions to give you one more opportunity if something comes up. And with that in mind, Brad is going to start off our discussion.
All right, thanks, Stephanie, and welcome everyone. Thank you for giving us a little bit of time today. I'll say every time we put together a topic for these compliance webinars, we always kind of sit around the office and think about the things that kind of hit our desk and what we're talking about the most recently. And I think for us, this post-hire screening has certainly been a hot topic in the last couple of months. So I hope we can kind of dive in and give you some details of what we're talking about here, things to think about. And, you know, after the webinar, if there's questions that you have, we'd love to answer those for you. There's lots of customization and filtering that goes on with everything that we do. So, you know, just give us a shout if you need anything. But I would just start off by saying, Stephanie said this from a minute ago, you know, background checks, they're a snapshot in time. So when you're doing your pre-employment background checks, you know, there's a number of things that, you know, we're looking at, but it's really what's in the court records as of that date, or unless we're doing something like an employment verification or an education verification. So I think in this case, we're really focusing more on the criminal side of the work that we do. So we're kind of thinking in the vein of, you know, what's in the court records. But the day after the employee is hired, they certainly can have things like a DUI or a theft charge, or we do a lot in healthcare. So we do a lot of things with professional licenses and federal exclusions lists that change over time. We get records not just daily, but we get them monthly. We also get them quarterly, and it just depends on the courts that we're getting records from and how often those records will actually change. You know, previous records, again, are updated with the courts over a length of period of time, and that's important to note. You know, the risk doesn't end with your hire. You obviously have things to be concerned about. We're in the business of helping you with that risk, but those risks could be consequential. Things like negligent retention claims, workplace violence, certainly increase to your insurance cost, or possibly helping keep those costs down by doing rescreens. Regulatory penalties, there's certain things that we do in the DOT space where there's liability claims there. And then obviously the you know, patient safety concerns with our healthcare clients, and then just damage to reputation to the company that they work for. We are seeing a number of different industries contact us. Healthcare kind of sits at the top with the high risk that they have, but I would say manufacturing, financial services, education are at the top of our list for our client base. But then there's others, you know, government contractors, staffing firms, certainly nonprofits, you know, anyone that really has an employee put in a high trust area of their company is certainly going to benefit for some type of post-hire screening. And so today we're going to take the time. Alicia and Stephanie are kind of going to dive into the detail of what we're talking about, give examples, and then talk a little bit about how our platform can kind of help highlight some of those things that maybe you want to track over time. So I'll turn it over to Alicia and we'll kind of dive into some details here.
Yeah, so this is Stephanie, and we are going to start with with two approaches to post-employment screening. Option one is periodic employee rescreening. Periodic rescreening is exactly what it sounds like. Rather than screening someone only at hire, you establish a schedule to screen employees again. So that could be quarterly, annually, every 3 years, or even when employees move into positions with greater responsibility. One advantage many of our clients appreciate is that this process can be automated within our software. There are tools in the system that allow us to set employees up for future rescreening, so HR doesn't have to manually track spreadsheets or calendar reminders. Another best practice is developing different screening packages for different purposes. So your initial pre-employment package may be more comprehensive, while a rescreen package can be tailored specifically for your organization's ongoing risk management needs. For example, you may not need every search you conducted during hiring, but you might still want updated criminal records, MVR, healthcare sanctions, or professional license verification. If you're currently using RSI and don't have automated rescreening set up, and you would like to, that's something our team can help with. In most cases, we can configure those tools for you quickly. So just reach out to us, and we generally ask about 48 hours to get everything set up for you. The biggest benefit here is simplicity. So once it's configured, the process is easy to manage. You just have to monitor the rescreening queue and initiate the rescreenings as they come due, or remove any terminated employees from the queue. The trade-off, of course, is that risk can occur between screenings. So if someone is screened annually and an issue occurs at the 6-month interval, you may not discover it until the next scheduled cycle. So that's where our second approach comes into play. So the second option is continuous monitoring, and that takes the post-employment screening a step further. So instead of waiting for the next scheduled rescreen, employees are enrolled in an ongoing monitoring program. So when reportable activity is identified, an alert is generated so your organization can become aware of the issue much sooner. This approach helps reduce the gap that exists with periodic rescreening. So rather than waiting months or even a year to discover a concern, you're able to receive notification much closer to when that activity is actually reported through the monitoring sources. So the goal here isn't to create more work for HR, but earlier awareness so organizations can make informed decisions and address potential compliance concerns, also protecting employees and customers and reducing your overall risk. And now Alicia is going to walk us through the different types of monitoring and how it works.
Yes, thanks, Steph. So first is the continuous criminal monitoring, and this is ideal for just any business. We'll monitor for new criminal activity that includes, the list of violent crimes and assault offenses, theft, fraud, forgery, drug-related offenses, weapons, domestic violence, offenses involving minors, sex-related offenses, corruption, just really any misdemeanor or felony that is in the courts can trigger our monitoring for criminal monitoring. And then the traffic monitoring, and this is ideal for businesses that have company drivers, sales staff, healthcare businesses, delivery drivers, executives, and companies that have fleet vehicles. And it includes serious traffic offenses that rise to the criminal level. So these are going to be located in the courts, like DUIs, reckless driving, speeding over 25 miles an hour, driving while suspended or revoked, hit and run, etc. So it's important to note that traffic monitoring is based on court-reported traffic activity and does not include most MVR activities, such as low-level speeding, driver's license suspensions, revocations, CDL downgrades, or any other license status changes. Those are not going to alert us. However, many of the underlying traffic-related offenses, such as DUIs, that can lead to these administrative actions may be identified through ongoing monitoring. And then next is healthcare monitoring. Obviously, this is perfect for healthcare organizations. This includes the Office of Inspector General, list of excluded individuals and entities, Drug Enforcement Administration, System for Award Management, TRICARE, state Medicaid lists, and any board actions. And then we also offer medical license monitoring, which will notify us if there's a change to the healthcare license status. We'll see expiration dates, that type of thing. Healthcare monitoring is especially valuable for organizations subject to healthcare compliance requirements. And understanding how continuous monitoring works, it's basically a simple 4-step process. So the employee enrollment is where clients can either send an employee roster or indicate on the initial background check that the employee needs to be added to monitoring. Then there's the initial look back review for criminal and traffic monitoring. They offer a 3 or 6 month look back, meaning when an employee is added to the monitoring, the system will scan the past 3 to 6 months for criminal or traffic records that we can report. The system then begins monitoring the employee on a daily basis. And then RSI receives an alert notification if a hit is received. And it's important to note, and Stephanie will cover this in the upcoming slides, but before we're able to report a hit to a client, we're required to verify it by ordering a county criminal search to make sure all information is completely up to date and accurate. So now I'll turn it back over to Steph.
All right, so Alicia mentioned the flexible enrollment options, but I'd like to go into a little bit more detail on that. So flexibility is important in this process because we know every organization hires and manages employees a little differently. Some clients do prefer the automatic enrollment. So in that model, when the original background check is ordered, the employee would automatically be flagged for future monitoring. So this creates a streamlined process because there's little additional work required after hire. So but in this case, you would have to let us know if you decided not to hire the individual upon completion of the background check. Other clients prefer batch uploads. So in those situations, we can upload the changes to your employee roster and add employees on a scheduled basis. And that usually is monthly, especially since we have the look back. You're doing a monthly upload will still catch anything that's happened within that month. The key compliance point that we always like to emphasize is particularly with the employee removals. So while many clients choose to send the additions monthly, individuals who are no longer employed should be removed from monitoring as soon as possible. So when someone leaves the company, there's a legal and compliance obligation to remove them immediately because RSI and your company no longer have permissible purpose to obtain or view any records pertaining to that individual, according to the FCRA. So doing this immediate removal will protect both the former employee's privacy and your organization's compliance obligations. The good news is that we're happy to work with whatever process fits your organization best, especially with that enrollment. So the goal is to make enrollment and maintenance easy while keeping your roster as accurate as possible. Another question we often receive is what happens after an alert? The important thing to understand is that we don't simply pass along every potential match that comes in from a monitoring source. The verification process will occur first. So first, when we receive a monitoring hit, the team will review and verify the information. We want to make sure that we're looking at the correct individual and that any information is current, reportable, and accurate before it would ever reach a client. Depending on the type of alert, we will usually conduct an additional county criminal search or other verification of the potential record. We're reviewing it through FCRA compliance and looking at the PII to make sure that it is actually the person that we are looking at before we pass that along. Once that verification is complete, the alert will be delivered through the client portal for your team to review and address according to your own internal policies and procedures.
Okay. So some important expectations. Monitoring isn't instant. Court systems update differently. So depending on the jurisdiction or the county, we may receive an alert the day after an arrest is made, or it may take several days or even longer for the court to add it to the public index for the system to monitor. So some alerts are timely, but it all depends upon the court reporting the arrest or charge. We've had clients call because they found out that an employee was arrested over the weekend, wondering why we didn't notify them. Well, there could be several reasons. There are instances where we hadn't received the alert yet due to the timing at the court level. And there have been instances where we've received the alert. It was an arrest alert, but formal charges haven't been filed yet. So an actual case doesn't exist yet. So sometimes that doesn't happen until after the initial court appearance and formal charges are brought. So then we have to just monitor the arrest record, and then we'll get another hit when a charge is actually filed, and then we can go through the process of verifying that at the court level. Another actual example that we had recently, the client found out from a news article that an employee had been arrested for a suspected sex offense charge. It didn't show up on the monitoring, so we ordered the county criminal because we were really wondering what is going on. Why didn't this show up? We were kind of disturbed by it. So we ordered the county criminal search looking for the charge, and nothing came back there either. We ended up finding out a couple of weeks later that there wasn't enough evidence to file formal charges against the individual, and the case was later dropped, or actually it wasn't even a case. Everything was dropped. So no formal charges were ever brought or filed into the court. So there was there was never anything that we could report. So just an example. And now I'll turn it back over.
All right, so now just giving a quick recap of what organizations tell us they value most in the ongoing screening solutions. The biggest themes are flexibility, automation, and visibility. Clients usually appreciate the choice of annual rescreening or continuous risk monitoring, or even a combination of those services based on their risk profile. Also like the flexibility in the enrollment options to fit into their workflow. Most importantly, clients know there's a review process behind every alert. So we're focusing on the compliance and accuracy and providing meaningful information through our portal so that your team can make informed decisions. At the end of the day, organizations choose RSI for this because we help them move beyond a one-time background check and create a more proactive approach to workforce risk management. And some of the key takeaways for today, as we wrap up, a pre-employment background check only reflects what was known at the time of hire. Employee risk, licensing status, driving history, and compliance-related information can change throughout employment. Continuous monitoring can help identify new concerns, while periodic rescreening provides another layer of protection. RSI offers flexible options that can be customized by position, department, or risk level, and enrollment can be automated to reduce administrative burden. Ultimately, proactive monitoring allows organizations to respond more quickly, support compliance efforts, and protect employees, customers, and their reputation. Before we wrap up, we'd like to make one final call for any questions. So if there's anything we didn't cover today or something you'd like us to elaborate on, please feel free to submit your question now. We'll kind of give a little pause to see if anybody submits anything. But if nothing comes through, we'd like to thank everyone for taking time out of your day to join us. We do appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about post-employment screening. And if any additional questions come up after today's session, you're always welcome to reach out to us at compliance@referenceservices.com. And we'll be happy to answer your questions or get things going for you there. So thank you all again, and we hope you have a great day. Oh, I see a question.
Yes, the question is, do all states allow continuous monitoring?
Yes, I think that what's important to note here is that if you're using RSI's authorization forms, first and foremost, your applicant is authorizing you to run a background check as long as they're employed with you. So that opens up the opportunity for doing rescreens and continuous employment or continuous monitoring. But we can get data out of every state. We get sex offender registry data. We can get all the things that we mentioned today. So it's just the only thing that changes across the state is how often the records are actually updated. That can vary by state or jurisdiction.
All
You're
right.
welcome. I
Yeah.
don't see any more questions.
Yeah, I think Alicia did a good job of giving a couple of examples. I think if I were just to add anything, it's just a reminder that what we're hired to do for our clients is actually report things based on FCRA compliance and things that you can make an employment decision on. And that's important. We can't just show you things that you shouldn't make an employment decision on. So as she explained, something might hit the news media, but it has nothing to do with court records. And that those are really very different. And so we would suggest to you, if there's something like that's concerning to you, call us and say, hey, we've heard about this. Can you do a little check on it and see what's going on? And sometimes we can give you the backstory that, hey, that's there. There's something that's we're looking at, but there's nothing that's reportable yet. So happy to do that at any time. But I think those are good examples.
I don't see any more questions at the time.
Okay, well, thank you again, everyone, and let us know if there's anything we can help you with for your post-hire monitoring.
Thanks, everyone.